The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the guests or hosts, and not necessarily those of the advertisers, networks, platforms, or stations. Warning that the content of the show may not be suitable for all audiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. The show does not intend to provide medical, legal, or financial advice, and viewers or listeners should consult with a professional before making any decisions based on the information presented.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. As always, we're broadcasting from 300 feet deep in an abandoned nuclear missile silo, somewhere lost in the post-apocalyptic wastelands of the Dakota Territories. And as always, I'm joined by the paranormal crime-fighting duo, Daisy and the Sundance Kid. We do have 2 new members of the security team, but they are upstairs resting. They're up on another level of the silo. Had a hard day today, so I've got our usual crime-fighting duo in the house. Today, circling high above us, we thought it was Mothman again, and then it ended up being one of those Amazon drones. So it wasn't a cryptid animal at all. But that's okay. We shot it anyway. And, it's awfully strange that we live in a world, an emerging sci-fi world where things can be delivered like that. But it's been a crazy week. A long week for your host here, Jack Carey. Lots of just peripheral stuff going on, life type stuff going on that have been, it's one of those weeks where it's just totally hectic and tough to sort of focus in on any one main theme that sort of popped up this week. So I thought we'd touch on a number of memes, and last week we were sort of, touching on where we were in 2025, ending 2025, going into 2026, and the continuation of the turbulence and the chaos really doesn't do any good to try to avoid any sort of political discussion. It sort of bleeds into every, aspect of our beings right at the moment. But we're obviously seeing lots and lots of chaos take place across the country. Why, I'll never understand. I'll never understand why people who are protesting ICE aren't actually protesting their congressman instead, because it's the congressmen who have the power to change the immigration law, which is what brought ICE there to begin with. Right? Just makes logical sense. That's where the math adds up. Because the way that it's being conducted right now, the math doesn't add. And showing up to a bunch of ICE agents trying to impede their progress, getting in their way, people getting shot, the whole thing, that's just pure madness when those ICE agents have zero power other than to report to work as told or be fired. And they're there actually executing a rightful law which the people of this country passed. Period. If you don't like the law, change the law. I've had numerous policemen tell me that exact same thing. If you don't like the law, Jack, change the law. So that would be my advice to the American public going forward. Step out of the way, let them do their thing. The problem really isn't in just allowing all of these people to remain here after Joe Biden committed treason by opening our borders completely with absolutely no vetting of anyone. And, you know, there's many states counties, areas in this country where it doesn't require hardly any proof of citizenship to vote in this country. Where do you think all of those Democrats were getting all of those votes from? And now they're seeing their voting base slowly being deported out of this country, and they are absolutely frothing at the mouth, knowing that all of those illegal votes are going bye-bye, and probably with it, their abilities to maintain power in this country. That's the playbook. You open the border, you let in tens of millions of people, you give them as much free stuff as possible, and you buy their vote. And what you would do in the case of Joe Biden, where you let in that many people, that many millions upon millions upon millions of people, is what you attempted to do was cut your countrymen's throats forever. The Republican Party would never have won another election for the foreseeable future when you got 20 million illegal voters all voting Democratic every single time, because they know that Democrats will eventually give them amnesty. And nobody will ever convince me that that wasn't the playbook from day one. And if that was the playbook from day one, then the motive was to sneak up behind the Republicans' backs and cut their throats forever. That is tantamount to saying to your countrymen, we are no longer interested in being your countrymen. And if that doesn't get you as close to a real civil war in this country, you're kidding yourself. So that's my little political diatribe today. There's no way to really get around facing the facts. And, you know, let's face it, yeah, there's a lot of hardworking, decent people that just wanted to come to America, find a job, and try to support their family. There's a whole other side of that coin, right? Where is the responsibility of all of those people that just walk across the border illegally to remain in their home countries and fight to make it a country that worth living in? A country where future generations of their countrymen will want to live. In other words, in these South American countries, where are their founding fathers? Where among any of them is a dedicated group of people willing to sacrifice everything to secure the freedom for their people? Because when millions of them can just walk across the border, it becomes a political pressure valve that allows for no change at all in South America. You cut that pressure valve off and you cause those people to stay place, and they will eventually explode into something like Iran, and they will change their circumstances. So that's really where that's at right now. And all of that's playing out right before our eyes, kind of at the same time that the web bot is predicting the emergence of sci-fi world, same time that the cyber prophecies, as I refer to them, which is a convergence of really artificial intelligence based with advanced data trend language analysis algorithms based with Vedic astrology and many other ancient disciplines all coming together, pointing in the same direction. And this is where they point, and this is kind of where, this is what I cover on this show. So they're pointing to, and what's playing out on a major level, if you've been paying attention, is the fact that silver is quickly on its way to becoming unobtainium. As predicted, that word was actually used by the Webbot when it produced those reports. And if you give me one quick second here, let's look up and see what's happening in Beijing as we speak. So if you haven't been watching the last few days in the silver market like us silver freaks do, you got to see the price of silver go through 100 like it was made of wet paper towel. No resistance at all. Right through it, right? And then it just kept going. Sometimes you think that, once you hit a resistance point like that and you blow through it, you'll eventually hit another one and you'll have a little dip like this. And that's profit taking. Natural. Guy just made 60% of return. He's going to take some money. He's got to show his wife, hey, here, I'm paying the bills, right? So he sells some silver. And that happens. And it went down a little bit. These guys took it up to $117. They sold it down the same day. $14 an ounce all the way back to $103. And right now, as I look at the price, and this is trading overseas, we're above $117 again and 26 cents. Tell me that's not going to break the high of 119 that was just set today. They gave it their all. Every short contract they could throw at it, every dirty trick they could play, every margin hike, and they hiked it 49% in a day. If you had a silver position and it was on margin, today they said, we know what, we need 49% value of your position in cash deposited today, or we're liquidating you. Let's say you got a $3 million position. You're fully allocated. Where are you going to come up with another, $1 million just to send over to them so that they feel secure about your position? That's what you're talking about. When you hike the existing margin that high on existing positions that are already on margin, those dudes either have to come up with enough money to cover the difference in the margin hike, or they have to sell their positions. So they were forced to sell. This was a purely planned attack on those margined long positions. And they were able to just wipe them out down to $103. And then here, right again, as we're speaking, almost like it didn't happen at all, silver is back to $117 and change and climbing as we speak. And if you follow some of the best silver technical analysts anywhere out there in the world, and by analyst, I'm not talking about the guys that are just like analyzing the macro reports that get published and stuff like that. And yeah, that's important. My point is, as a technical trader, is if you have properly designed metrics, all of that information that's peripheral, that's out there, that's factoring into the price will be detected by those metrics without you having to involve yourself in the consumption of hundreds of articles of information every day. And that's what I do, and that's what other technical analysts do, right? So when it comes to silver, these technical analysts are saying that when you break 125, and you're approaching 118 right now, the next metric, technically speaking, that should, on a Fibonacci projection, show some resistance, will be right around $333. That's becoming completely unobtainium. At that point, they predict that it will kind of trade sideways at 333, 3 to 400, right in there for a bit of a prolonged period before it spikes upward again into the mini 4 digits. So you're talking about, and if you're looking for an exit on silver, most of those experts are looking at the silver to gold ratio. Right now it's priced at 16 to 1. 16 pieces of silver to 1 piece of gold. As it's pulled out of the ground, it takes as much effort to get 16 pieces of silver as it does 1 piece of gold. That was the historical past. Now it's 6 pieces to 1. And that's not been reflected in the price whatsoever. At a time when there are multiple huge financial institutions that are short the metal by millions and hundreds of millions of ounces. Hundreds of millions of ounces simply aren't there. Even though they've been sold out on paper contract to clients. So, when you see these days and it's oh my God, it jumped from, I literally watched it go from $109 to $117 in like an hour. Couldn't believe it. Parabolic move, right? And then it turns around and it dumps back down to $103. Well, a lot of people would panic during that situation. We hit the top, dump it. No, you're not even close to the top. And you're gonna see this kind of price action the whole way up. All the way till you get into those mid 300s, and even then you might say it's just barely getting fairly priced at that stage. But the ratio should be much higher, and as gold is going higher, and gold is going higher, much, much higher from its present level, closed at 5,300 an ounce. Technically speaking, and this is an interesting point to put out, is it took an immense amount of buying pressure, right? From pushing it to 2,500 to 5,000 an ounce, right? 100%. It only takes 20% of that same buying pressure to push it up to 6,000. And then from there, it only takes, 18% pressure to push it to 7. Then 15% to push it to 8. And my point being is that every 1,000 it gains in price, the amount of buying effort to gain that another 1,000 goes down and down and down. Because the percentage it takes to move it up $1,000 goes down and down and down. So you could be seeing gold somewhere in the $24,000, $25,000 range easily within the next year. Imagine what that does to the price of silver. If the ratio stays the same, you'd be seeing silver in the in the very high four-digit range. High enough that it would really sort of constitute a once-in-a-lifetime generational wealth flippening. The wealth would flippen from the banking institutions into the hands of the people that have been stacking physical metal all these many years and who have been called idiots. Isn't that amazing how the universe works like that? Loves just to explore every little nook and cranny of possibility. Make the guys that are on top look like total morons, and the guys on bottom eventually become the kings. It's that kind of a thing. It's crazy. And, you know, if you're a follower of, well, Bitcoin and Ethereum, have a big spokesman out there named Tom Lee, who owns Bitmine Immersion Technologies. It's a DAT, a digital asset treasury company, of which there are becoming numerous. And, you know, he was on CNBC this morning. Oh my God, I have to hold my nose every time I watch CNBC because the personalities of the people that are on there are so utterly New York toxic that one can barely take the stench through the TV screen. However, they do have quite a few quality guests on there that are worth listening to, and Tom Lee, the Wall Street super whiz kid, was on there, and he was talking about Ethereum and Bitcoin and the bull case for them coming over the next few years. One interesting development was Charters Bank, which is a huge banking institution, this last week put out an article stating that their price prediction for Ethereum by 2030, that's 4 years, 40,000 a token. 40,000 a token in 4 years. And today you can buy it for $3. That's what we're talking about. And the cyber prophecies led us here for a very good reason. You know, but I firmly believe that, you know, there are powers that work that are out there in the world that are sort of awakening the right people to this opportunity at the right time in order to obtain a degree of the kind of wealth that's necessary to cause the right kind of change in the future going forward. And that's going to require lots and lots of different kinds of change. If you are trading crypto or Ethereum right now, it's a very strange time. We're literally just now getting past the October 10th liquidation event, which was the largest recorded in human history in any market. And yet the crypto market survived it. Not only survived it, but now there's signs that it's re-blossoming again. Leveraging is beginning to restructure again. And that was what had led everything to these multi-year all-time highs. So you're beginning to see the sort of legs get back underneath the crypto market at a time when you're probably going to have a lot of risk on asset type of stuff being buoyed by precious metals. The weirdest combination. But it's something I had recommended many, many months ago, and I am absolutely no financial analyst, but I can analyze information. So, yeah, going forward here, crypto is going to feature more and more prominently in your lives, and so is the continuation of the revealing of secrets. And because this is the age of the revealing of secrets, and we're going to get back to a lot of those secrets and how they tie together right after this break.
Great job, Jack. Oh, yeah. So what kind of reports have you been getting in from crypto side? Getting any goodies?
Oh, I get lots of ghost reports, and I don't investigate ghosts, so that's always one of those things where I have to kind of just be gently give them, advice towards asking another colleague of some kind.
Yeah.
What
I always wonder about, the connection between spirits and those the UFO phenomena.
Yes, and there seems to be some sort of very weird connection going on there between the other side and UFOs.
I don't know what happened, but we need to go back on air right now. Like 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome back, everybody, at Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live. I'm your host, Jack Carey, your personal tour guide to the Twilight Zone. I've got a face for milk cartons and a voice for smell-o-vision. And, tonight, I think I saw my face on a milk carton the other day. I won't lie. It's either that or a doppelganger, but maybe I'm actually missing. Could I be missing in the world somewhere? Wouldn't that be fascinating? Here in the Badlands, the post-apocalyptic Badlands of the South Dakota territories, it's easy to become lost. So to become a desperate hombre out here in the bush. So, but I'm just seeing some intelligence come across the wire here. So yeah, you guys are just absolutely, it's a rocket ship overseas right now on silver. You're at 118 and climbing. So and you heard it here first. I started talking about it way back prior to $50. And I think this is just the beginning of what's going to happen. What we don't know and how this emerges or diverges from some of the WebBot's original Alta reports was that they described like this kind of ultra inflation taking place along with the accruement of and value of like precious metals. So. And we haven't really seen that. In fact, you may even see deflation beginning to take place. So, but this will be a brave new world, and it will be scary for a lot of people. A lot of people haven't been able to sort of prepare or were aware that they have been preparing for a time when this was going to happen. So there's a lot of reasons for the upward movement. Price of silver, the main reason that facilitates all the others, as the fact is they simply do not have the metal. They promised through all kinds of derivative contracts that they could deliver vast amounts of silver to various clients all around the world, institutional mainly. And it turns out they just don't have the metal. So if you show up there and stand for delivery and you're saying, hey, I want the physical metal in my possession out the door, they just don't have it to give you. So that's going to cause a huge, breakdown in the comics to the point where it may implode that market altogether. And I'm not talking about in weeks, I'm talking about in days. So that's some crazy stuff, right? And, you know, a lot of this is interesting stuff because the Webbot predicted that a lot of this economic turmoil is indirectly linked to the United States' deep legacy UFO programs. The idea being that they've siphoned off so much money in order to try to back engineer that kind of technology, just trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, because let's face it, it's the ultimate holy grail. If you can get that to work and work under your command and do what you want it to do and annihilate any enemy at will from halfway around the world and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, that's the holy grail. Might tuck you into spending a few $1 trillion the taxpayers don't know about. I mean, what they don't know won't hurt them, right? Especially when it's in their own best interest. That's kind of how the government operates. So, a lot of these secrets that are tied to the current economic issues that we are having are going to continue to be leaked by various insiders and scientists and things like that, mainly because the money is running out. And believe it or not, the mechanism by which they have been able to keep this a secret for a really long time is that they pay these people off. And they pay them off handsomely. You know, chief scientist, and you're working for a legacy UFO program, and they're, you know, giving you a paycheck once a month, and it's 150 grand in cash. You know, telling you never have to pay taxes on it, that kind of thing. Those kind of people who are being given access to the most exotic technology humanity's ever got its hands on, and they're getting paid hand over fist. Those kind of people don't give up secrets. They just don't. It's not in their best interest whatsoever, especially when they're dealing with the technology that by all insider testimony would imply something that we would consider to be almost not even real. You know, something that has a power source strong enough to bend space and time around it in a bubble. If you can do that, you can literally create your own realities within the bubble. So, you know, and that leads us into this testimony that we've had a number of times from Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who she's head of the commission for the releasing of government secrets that Trump formed, right? Had to do with the JFK documents and the Epstein documents and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, she's been on national news saying that she was taken to a SCIF, a private facility where they house top secret information, and was allowed access to some files in which she was presented evidence that convinced her that obviously not only the craft and the bodies were real, but, and she couldn't elaborate, there was other evidence contained within those files, highly suggesting an interdimensional nature to this alien species. That's fascinating because I've got a 1947 FBI memo from the FOIA request stating that they also believed that these so-called visitors originated from another dimension, and that had been caused by our nuclear testing, our early nuclear testing. And what do we have today? We have nonstop obsession by these craft with our nuclear capabilities and bases and submarines and what have you. So, so we're left in a scenario by which we have all of these deep black budget groups that have probably never become known to the American public because of how well they've been hidden, until there's some sort of breakthrough which they simply cannot contain anymore. You know, Representative Luna, in the documents that she read, the scientists equated the craft that they had to somebody going back in time and leaving an iPhone at the foot of a cave of a tribe of cavemen. And then, even though they were smart, intuitive, intelligent cavemen, seeing if they could reproduce it. That's really kind of what they're looking at. And can we reproduce that exactly? Doesn't look like it. Can we reproduce ARVs or alien reproduction vehicles? We can come close. Some of the technology they were able to study gave them super advanced ideas, which they have had breakthroughs on. Doesn't mean that it operates just like the actual craft. The actual craft apparently operates psionically. Psionically is through a psychic interface with the pilot. They're still experimenting with how to do that psionically with a human pilot, and because of that, they have various programs out there in the world trying to recruit psionically advanced children out of gifted programs and school systems basically around the world in an attempt to recruit the best psychics they can to try to operate some of these craft. It's also interesting that some of these craft appear to be so artificially intelligent that they're almost a living type of being, and even seem to be constructed out of some sort of biologic material of some kind. So that's even quite bizarre. If you watch the documentary The Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah, the, famous filmmaker, Hollywood producer, bigwig guy, just came out on Prime and a few other sources a couple of months ago. You'll notice that there's one important government official who makes it a very strong point that the aliens were in the oceans. So, what I think you're going to begin to see is attention by mainstream media to begin to relay that idea to the public, that these things are somehow living in the oceans. And it's weird that you have scientists like Dr. Gary Nolan, for example, who says that we really have to entertain a notion of protogenesis on this planet. In other words, it's possible that before the great calamity occurred, the big flood, all of that kind of stuff on the planet, there was an extremely advanced human-like life form. Advanced enough that when the planetary changes started to take place, they decided to make their homes in ocean and kingdoms under the ocean where safety could be had. And that makes a lot of sense. If that's the case, then under the protogenesis, theorem, they're not alien by our definition. They're just another human species, really advanced, and so advanced that they're able to keep their presence hidden from us. Why, we don't really know, unless it's out of a sense of just fear. Who knows? Maybe we're just too dangerous. So, all of these sort of lead into each other, and all of these things are going to be emergent coming up really in the next few weeks and few months. We've got a ton of geopolitical risk that's taking place out there in the world. All of that could play into the continuing downward pressure on the dollar, which the dollar, by the way, if you saw that today, just hit its all-time low. If you left your money in a banking account, a savings account, whatever, over the course of the past year, you lost 10% of your global buying value. 10% just vanished. So, all of those economic changes that are taking place that were predicted through these different paranormal means also insinuate that you're going to see a changing of our ideas of reality itself. When you sort of break the illusion of the old Babylonian money magic, debt-based fiat currency system, it becomes a lot harder to hide other kinds of secrets. So you could be entering into sort of a golden age where there's a lot more sort of open disclosure over things. Blockchain is going to change a lot of that, because blockchain really kind of cuts down on the ability to funnel money to SAP programs and things like that. So, and what else did I have for you guys this evening? Cryptid Corner did have a report come in, which was quite weird. A gentleman was hunting, had his dog with him. They were in the Adirondacks. They had been out for hours. Super remote area. Guy said it felt creepy. Felt like he was being watched, the whole thing. And they kind of came up over a little embankment, and right in front of them was a big flat area, and on the other side of the flat area was a Sasquatch standing by a tree. He said the thing focused on the dog immediately, and he also said the eyes were glowing red, and that's some sort of weird twitch or light or something like that all of a sudden happened towards the dog, and the dog sort of whimpered off from the area before this thing turned and ran into the woods. And here again is another one of those major paranormal Bigfoot encounters where how do we begin to explain a creature that has abilities that are like that? And I have to say that that matches my own personal encounter with seeing a Sasquatch up in the Chusca Mountains, where I saw one eye look like a bicycle reflector. When you see it and it's that bright and that glowing, you think, what the hell is a bicycle reflector doing up, a 14,000 foot mountain, boreal mountain that has no roads or trails or anything on it? Like somebody brought a bicycle up here, and all of a sudden the bicycle reflector moved, and an entire head peeked out from behind a tree, and there were two of those red reflectors, and they were the size of my fist, and I realized, looking at the face, that those were the eyes of the creature. That's how big it was. And when it turned to take off, the speed alone put the fear of God into me forever. It wasn't the size, not the appearance so much, but nothing. There is nothing in the woods that should be able to move with that kind of speed naturally. It is, until you see it, you just can't scarcely believe it. So, that is an interesting Bigfoot encounter, and it kind of leads us into where Bigfootology is currently. As far as I know, you still have the Expedition Bigfoot guys that are out there. And let's face it, those guys are rocking the best funding that any cryptozoology effort has ever gotten. They're full-time. They can travel at will. They have all the latest equipment. They have all the latest experts. They have EMF tents. They have 12 thermal drones they can send up in one shot. They have an algorithm that tells them exactly where to go and where to be to experience the next encounter. All of that stuff has intelligence agency written all over it. And when you have intelligence agents involved at Skinwalker Ranch also studying the sighting of bipedal cryptid animals from time to time, it's not much of a stretch to consider the fact that they're looking at these creatures in other environments too, trying to understand the connection between the two, right? So, 2026 is going to be one of those sort of, I think, shockingly revelatory years where we're going to see shock after shock after shock come out. And most of them will be the answers to various mysteries or conspiracies. And you have to remember that every time that you have the revealing of a secret, it causes a little mini earthquake in human society. And there's lots of reverberations that take place on those, when that happens. So, cryptozoology is going to have some big breakthroughs. I feel like this will be the year that you see the truth of the death of the fiat currency and the widespread adoption of precious metals and cryptocurrencies. It's funny because as much as the precious metals have gone up over the past few months, only 1% of Americans even own any. What happens to those prices when more like 25-50% own? Right? That's going to be sheer insanity taking place. So, I previously reported it would be a smart idea over the coming months to sort of hunker down at home. Make your home as much of a refuge as you possibly can, a place where you enjoy spending time and being in sort of a meditational state as we're going through all of this, and maintaining mental peace. Because all you can do now is take a day-by-day step in preparation for all this craziness that's about to occur. And, prepare for the worst and hope for the best as we go through these turbulent periods. And I will say, on the other side of this period of the Kali Yuga is apparently, and is reported quite a bit, a new golden age could await humanity. If we can get through all of this without destroying ourselves, it could be that breakthroughs in technology actually create a higher standard of living for human species worldwide in a way that's never been achieved before. So that's also a possibility. And I am a technical crypto trader, so I always have a bullish thesis and a bearish thesis. And you have to wait to see as we go along what type of material events validate this particular model or that particular model. So I would expect here going forward, probably some upward movement in crypto and continued upward movement in the precious metal prices for the foreseeable future. Eventually there's going to come a big correction, but I think that's going to be a very short-lived kind of event before everything takes off again. And I think it'll stay that way till you have a non-accommodative Federal Reserve, going forward. So, and, going forward, maybe on my other channel, we will be setting up a live feed for the YouTube channel for some of my followers, but maybe on that channel there will be an extra video too I'll put out, just basically showing the types of metrics and indicators that we tend to use to show periods when the market's not acting very rational. When it comes down to like trading cryptocurrencies or anything really, markets are highly efficient. That's a theorem that's taught everywhere. The problem is that they're not always highly efficient, and there are periods of time when they become extremely inefficient, and those are the moments when you bet on a return to normalcy. And that's how good traders actually make money. But that's basically wrapping up tonight's show, guys. Let's see here. Trying to think if there's any big events coming up next week. Probably not, but I would continue to watch the silver markets. It's going to be it's a once in a lifetime show to watch every day. You could literally get a gap up $10-$20 before the bell even rings, that kind of a thing. And if if she breaks 125, she goes to 333, guys. And then from there, the metrics show 4 digits. So, can you imagine $1,000 an ounce silver? That would be, that would make an awful lot of silver stackers very, very wealthy. So, join me next week, guys. We will jump down another rabbit hole. I think we kind of summarized where we are right now. There are some new sort of mysteries developing out there in the world that we should take a look at. And we'll get back to it next week. So I will see you then. I'm your host, Jack Carey, and this has been another episode of Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio Live.